Hi everyone, welcome to the first week of our Introduction to ZBrush course. Today we'll be getting familiar with the ZBrush interface, which can seem a bit daunting and overwhelming at first, but don't worry, I'll guide you through the key areas you need to know to get started. When you first open ZBrush, there'll be the ZBrush homepage. I would just click that off, and the lightbox window, which we won't need for a while, so just click hide. Let's begin at the top of the screen with the main menu. This menu is your gateway to all the tools and features that ZBrush offer. It's very similar to Maya in regards to all the tools being on top. You'll see various tabs here like the tool, the stroke, the texture, and brushes and lights and render. But the main one we're going to use for this class is the tool tab and the brush tab, which is right here. The tool tab is already docked here already. If it's gone, you can actually, for each of these tabs, you can click on this little docking icon right here, and it'll dock either here or here. And you can just drag around the windows to just move around your preference, but I tend to keep it where the default location is. The tool tab is where you can load up and modify and manage your 3D models. In ZBrush, they call it tools. I don't know why, but it's always been called tools, and it's basically model in their lingo. And if you click here, this is where you can load up some 3D meshes, primitives. You can also load up your previous safe ZTL tool files or models. You can import OBJs from Maya or other softwares in here too. We'll go over all these steps in later weeks. But for now, let's just select the sphere. Okay. Next, let's take a look at the canvas area, which is the large space in the center of your screen right here. And the scale of the canvas area is the default scale. If you check documents right here, it's always, well, for mine it's 1120 by 840, and it might look small based on what monitor you're using, so you can actually adjust that scale here. I'd like to do 1980 by 1000 maybe. Let's see. And then you click resize. Kind of want it a little bit bigger. So let's say, oh. Maybe 1500. We'd like to resize your document. Say yes. That feels good. I might play around with the size again later. But if you're happy with that, you can save this as a startup document, and it will always be that scale you like. So I'm just going to click that for now. So it'll save this in your user preference. Initially, the canvas allows you to work both in 3D and paint in 2.5D. So you're going to get a unique blend of creative control. You'll spend a lot of time, here, kind of like the Maya perspective camera, rotating, zooming, and scoping your model. Initially, when you drop in your tool, you just, with your left mouse button, you just click on it and drag to scale it on the side. But right now, it thinks it's in the 2D canvas. It can't really rotate or do anything yet. And if you click ticking, more spheres will just keep coming out. And for people who start in ZBrush, this is the point where they get to working on this software and decide it's not working for me. But to make it feel more kind of like the 3D perspective camera, what we need to do is on top here, there's It's called edit mode right now. Right now it's just doing draw, so we're just slapping on whatever we bring in as a flat 2D object. So click edit, and now you can rotate the last tool that you brought into the canvas. So that's going to be this one right here. And you realize, what am I going to do with all this other stuff where I just dropped it in the canvas? To remove that, you click Control N, and that should just clear out the canvas, kind of like other softwares where you just clear out the canvas. All right, now to rotate, you just click and hold the left mouse button, and the controls are a little bit different from Maya, so it's gonna take some time to get used to it. If you click Alt and click the left mouse button and hold it, you can move the object around the canvas. Again, to rotate, you just click the left mouse button and just drag left and right, up and down. Okay. Sorry, misclicked. The most confusing one is the zoom. So earlier we did Alt and click and hold the left mouse button and just rotating the camera with those two buttons held. That will rotate. But to zoom, you just release just the Alt button, and still maintain the left mouse button being held. You can zoom. With a lot of practice, you'll get used to it. So Alt, click left mouse button. You can move it around. Left mouse button just by itself, you just rotate the model. Alt, click left mouse button, and then release Alt, you can zoom. And yeah, well, we're going to keep practicing on this the first week. So eventually, after a couple of weeks, it'll just be built into your muscle memory. Another tool that we're going to use is called the subtool. Subtool it's very similar to, I guess, the Photoshop layer system, or in substance the layer system, where you can just work on one material or one object individually. So right now for this tool, there's only one piece right here. But let's say if I want to add another piece into this tool, I can go to Pen, and let's bring a cylinder this time. Okay, cylinder. Now there's two pieces in there. Correct? You can turn the visibility of them off and on like this, very similar to Photoshop. This one's selected. It's hard to tell to see which one is selected, but if you see there's a little gray out section of the name right there, it means that's the subtool selected, so you can turn this one off. And if you have both off, if you select the other one, then the other one will disappear. Play around with that. So let's behind this. Now you can just edit this without affecting this, and it's really good for when we're working on characters with different garments or different accessories on them. So instead of just having one all combined tool, we can just break it out individually and just working on them separately. And also this allows us to give flexibility of one piece having more subdivision than the other piece. But if you want to rename your piece, I tend to really be pretty strict on myself on naming different types of subtools, so there won't be any confusion what piece is what. So for this one, I'll just call it intro ball, and this one I'll just do cylinder. And you click enter, and you can rename it as often as you want. If you want to move up and down, you can also use this. There's other options we'll play around later on where you can duplicate a subtool and then use that as, you can move that around. It's really good for if you're making buttons or anything that require you to do a lot of duplication. And then on the left side is where we control our brush and material, and alphas and strokes. We'll go in more detail of all the options here. But the main thing that we were going to be using for this first couple of weeks is right here is where you can click the type of brushes we have. There's a lot of brushes. Some of these might be a little bit different from yours because I have it in my library. But the main ones that we're going to be using is standard, smooth. We'll talk about mask later, and then clay buildup and clay. For the most part, I just use clay buildup, smooth, and standard for 75% of the things I do in ZBrush. All these other ones they might work on certain situation, but it's not really. They're very niche, so because you can't really see me using the cloth brush on when I'm making a piece of rock, or there's other hard surface brushes that we will use on situation or asset that dictates that. But for the most part, if we're in the blocking out stage, it's standard, smooth, clay buildup. Oh, and also move. Let me see where the move is. Move tool right here. Okay. And if your brush window is large and you're just trying to look for it, you can easily just, let's say if I was looking for the move tool, you can just press M, and then it'll just highlight all the brushes to start with that letter. And there's also these orange hotkeys right here that you can use. So for instance, if I want to use this move topology tool, I can click on here, or I can click B, and then M, and then this says T, so I press T, and now it's changed to that. And to change the draw size, you can come up here. Intensity is how much pull or push you want to, how strong you want that to be. So for this instance, let me change this to this draw size. Let me pull this up. So that's intensity 50. If I do intensity 3, as you can see, it's barely moving. 14 is a lot better, and then 91 is it's a lot stronger. And Z add means you're pulling it out. Z sub means you're pushing it in. For the move tool, you can just pull in and out by just clicking with the left mouse button and clicking on the vert and just pulling whatever direction you want. But for standard tool, if you click on the button, it'll just slowly add, pull that piece out because it's Z add right now. But you click on Z sub, it'll just push it back in. And we'll talk about the RGB later. RGB is more about the painting side. Just to be safe and just to avoid confusion for this couple of weeks, I would just keep that off, all of these off, and just concentrate on Z add and Z sub. And under the brush option, there is a stroke option. There's dots. That's instead of when you're dragging it across, it'll affect the mesh in a similar dot pattern where there's just space. Freehand is the best, where if you just want a continuous stroke. Color, spray, and this is more for texture painting. ZBrush. Drag drop and drag stamp is where we're trying to drag kind of alpha on a mesh. We'll talk about that later. And then drag rectangle too. It's where you're just dragging it across. For now, for this first couple weeks, we're just going to use freehand. And the alpha is similar to Photoshop. The alpha is whatever alpha you're using for the stamp. We're just going to keep it default for now. So it'll be alpha 1. I tend to just keep it like that just in case if I need to go in and maybe do kind of smaller stroke or a finer cut, I might change the alpha. All these other stuff are just special case, just in case, where I just need to stamp a star on the outfit, or you can import different alphas and use that to stamp on a higher level detail asset. But for now, just use alpha 1. Texture is where you can, if your mesh is UV'd, because for the most part we're going to be creating our base in Maya and bringing it in, and especially for characters later on, those meshes will be pre-UV'd already, so you can bring in, you can load the texture here, or you can load any pattern here. But for now, we're just going to turn texture off. And the materials are just different, very similar to shaders, where it's different shaders you can view your model. I tend to prefer working in the matte cap gray. Sometimes, I just get sick of staring at a gray object. I might just change it to a red or whatever preference you have. But the matte cap gray will be good enough for us for this following week. And then the last brush I like is smooth. So it's basically smooth. The smooth brush is always applied to the hotkey shift. So right now it's just asking, this brush will be, when you press the shift key and click, it will become the smooth brush. So right now, as you can see, standard is the brush right now, and I'm just pushing, pulling. But if I hold shift, and now it's just switch into the smooth brush, and this basically just smooth out the meshes. Let me turn off RGB, and the intensity is pretty strong. I just like to kind of do like a softer, smooth intensity. And with the shift button held, you just go around and just smooth it, and then release the shift, and you can rotate the model, and you can toggle back from the brush you're using and smooth by just clicking on smooth. So just play around with that. And yeah, this is just the basic intro to the interface of ZBrush and just the main tools that we're going to be using for the first couple of week. Yeah, it's going to get a little confusing at the beginning, but just just watch this video, give it a couple try, and as you continue to work in ZBrush, you'll just become more familiar with these areas, and you'll start to figure out your own workflow. Okay. So yeah, try it out.